Right. Couple of points first. We've got. We are quorate. I have checked. There's only three of us. Martin, would you be able to take notes? Because if I'm going to have to work off what other documents we've got and with track changes, the problem I have, let's be open about it, is that taking notes means I need to have them in draft form by about 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. No, that's the crazy time we've got to allow Jill to publish the notice of the next meeting, because otherwise, if she waits until Monday, we're vandaxed. It's
very true.
If she gets it out.
So if I take them just in Word,
take them in Word and send it to me, and I'll mark them up the way I usually do.
Yeah.
And we can take it from there. Can I just check if Peter has come back to me yet? I don't think he has. Let's just check. Just wait for this to come through. Sorry we're going to be a couple minutes late, but we've got a couple of things to sort out first of all, which are not quite on the usual agenda. Right. Okay. No, he hasn't come back. Right. Okay, I have a plan B. And that plan B is I have a copy of the document version 4, and you remember that when he had to leave early one time, I carried on with 4 and sent it to him, and he was then going to update that. I suggest we just carry on further down. I can't remember exactly where he stopped, but if we carry on further down, we can do that. So, okay, welcome to the meeting, folks. Right, we have 2 apologies for absence. Peter's not been very well, and I'm not quite sure if he was, I think, a pre-planned operation this on Tuesday.
Yeah.
On Tuesday, he wasn't sure if he'd be in there for 1 night or 2 nights. So he sends his apologies. I think we should, and I'll formally write to him and say, I hope you get better soon. Can I do that on behalf of everyone? And Emmett at the moment is doing about 220 kilometres an hour across the northern Belgium. He's off to Amsterdam.
He's on the Eurostar.
He's on Euro. No, I think it's Thalys. Get your trains right, mate. Thalys. Showing how superior continental railways are. Right. Okay, so if that's all right.
Yeah.
Any declarations of interest?
No.
I sent some draft minutes out.
Yes.
Any changes or issues with them or anything like that?
I would propose them as being correct.
Right. Are you happy, Martin?
Yes, I am.
Right. Accepted. Fine. Seconded. Voted. No. We're all through there. Public participation. Now this actually turns out to be wrong, because I read the rules again as to how working part, and it doesn't even say anything about 15 minutes. It just says we can decide what we want to do for public participation. We have one person again, and you're a member of the public, and you're also filming us, and we might ask you for some input. Let me stress that we've done asked input from Bob, and that was very useful. I have invited Jill to join us next week, if we possibly can find them. But again, is she a member of the public in this case? I suppose technically she is.
No.
Well,
No.
whatever.
No.
They should not.
It's a council meeting, she's the town clerk.
He's the
Yes,
town
but she doesn't have an official function in this working party.
Oh, but she
I'm only pulling your leg. Come on. But
do you have the standing? Do you have the terms of reference for the working
Yes.
party?
I
that's
don't
it.
think she needs to be.
No, she doesn't. But we'll invite her, as we've invited Bob and invited Christina, to give us input. But obviously it might be a solid chunk of input, because what I propose to do is send her a copy of how far we've got so far,
Yes.
as a document we'll accepted all of the amendments, all the work that Peter did. Yeah.
And these terms of reference say, where appropriate, the proper officer and the responsible finance officer can be invited to meetings to advise.
Good.
Okay.
Right, that's fine.
So we've invited her
I have formally invited
next
her.
week.
Because I sent her a few emails at the beginning of Tuesday, first of all congratulating her, and then things from there. Right, okay. Then I think we just go straight, and a couple of other points if I make them before we leap into the meeting, I think. Right, we quarter, yes, we've had a policy, best bits with Peter, participation, right. We also need to think a little bit ahead. You're going to be here on the 6th, aren't you, Nick?
I'm here on the 6th, but then I'm away on the 9th for the rest of July.
For the rest of July.
So I won't be able to attend any meetings after the 9th.
Martin, are you going to be here for July, or you don't know?
I don't plan to be away any time in July.
Right. And if Peter's well by next week, Emmett made no mention about when else he was going to be away. I suggest, and therefore, do we try to carry on? But we have to bear in mind there is a council meeting on. Let me bring the agenda.
31st.
Sorry. What date is it? Next
I think it's the 31st.
31st.
The
Full
very last day
STC.
of July.
I think it's the 31st.
So we could in theory slip in 2, maybe 3 meetings between, because Jill I think would need to have the information no later than Tuesday the 25th. And I'd have sorry.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, we Tuesday the 20th, so she can get the papers, but she normally issues them on a Wednesday. Ideally, I'd like to give her the papers on the 24th if I can. The question then arises, how far do we think we will be? Because whilst we're making good progress, it has been a fairly hard slog. Do we think we're going to complete the rough document, not the rough, but I mean the working document you sent us, Nick?
I think we will, because when you get to paragraph 7 and 8, the bulk of them are statutory.
That's what I saw.
So we've got about 4 pages here,
yes,
which we can almost go straight through.
I think so. Okay, so we've got conduct. I've got. Did we actually start item 6? I think we did. Was this conduct? Motions?
We did, but we didn't come to any conclusion.
Right, so
I think we should start at 6.1.
Right, okay, start at 6.1. I'm just running through this thing. As you say, 7 and 8 are very much, 7 is confidential matters. Not all of that, there's a good chunk of legals in there.
Yeah. A chunk of it is statutory. 8
is
code of conduct.
Code of conduct, good.
And a chunk of that is statutory.
And then 9 is financial controls.
9 is virtually all
statutory,
and 10 is statutory.
So we could, with a following wind, be able to say we've done the first document. Now, the original remit, I think, was also then look at financial regulations. Wasn't
yes.
that? But they're not. Well, we haven't really. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, but I mean, I think the main priority is to get through this. I don't know if the financial regulations, I suspect, are also fairly statutory.
Who has them? Presumably the RFO has got
yes.
an up-to-date copy. Okay. Right.
Well, I think they're on the website as well.
Okay. Well, let's see how we get for today and next week, and then we can take a final decision. Everyone in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay, right, fine. And I'll do track changes, and I can send this to Peter, or he can send me a fully up-to-date copy of how far he got, and we can do. He's probably better at a place to merge documents. sorry.
Can I ask, are we able to have the text on the screen?
No, because I haven't got the connectors, I'm afraid. Sorry, they're Peter's own cables, and it's just we'll have to just muddle through, should we say?
Yeah.
And I need to finish promptly. Okay. Right. I don't know yet how much interest we're generating in the general public. How many people are watching us?
I've got two, but one who is more likely to contribute. I think one is a watcher and one is a potential participant.
Well, again, we haven't got a protocol for comments from people who are watching a live stream, and I think maybe that's something we have to look at in the long term. I've seen those big someone's issues about how much councils are able to continue with mixed meetings, which are both live, as in that, and also a physical presence. And I think it's a debate that the government hasn't had a chance to sort out properly, because they're saying the rules say you must have everybody present. Right, okay, let's go to item 6.1.
That 6.1 is actually redundant, I consider.
Which is in what respect?
Oh no, sorry, I suppose, yes it is, no, sorry, I take that back.
It did startle me a little bit. Yeah, carry on. Appoint a person to preside here. You don't need a written notice. Inaccuracy in the minutes, I suppose.
6.1 here is identical to what we have in our existing standing orders.
Does anyone have an issue with that at all?
I don't have an issue with any of these, no.
I do wish that we made better use of 6.1D to alter the order of business on the agenda. I don't think Monday was our best example, but there we go. But if it's in there, we can 6.1D to alter the order of business on the agenda for reasons of urgency or expediency. Now, we had some poor old people sitting here for 2.5 hours on the Woodnessborough Road matter.
We did alter that at the meeting.
Slightly.
We brought it forward. We discussed it. It was item 18 or something, and it was brought forward and discussed earlier by using that standing order.
In part, yes, personally I would have done it slightly differently, but I wasn't chairing that meeting. Anyway, so the minutes of the committee, right. Is there anything there on the first page, which ends at item I, and then we carry on to the second page? I'm not quite sure I understand M, which is on the following page. How will you conduct a consultation with residents who are directly affected by any specific measure? I don't understand that.
Sorry, where are you?
6.1M. M for Mike.
Well, that means a councillor could propose a motion that we should consult with a particular resident who's in the room who is directly affected by any specific measure. Is strange wording.
Yes, it is, Ross. I took it the other way, which the council would go out and consult with residents directly affected. They didn't need a motion for that.
Yes.
I'm not happy with that one. What do we want to do?
I would be happy if we took that one out. Do you agree, Martin?
I mean, given that the standing orders are appearing quite sort of restrictive, I think, rather than anyone can propose a motion at any time, I think conducting a consultation is an option that we might keep here, but
Well, why don't we ask the sorry.
There's you know a clear, maybe a clear instance of this in relation to the highways proposal for parking on St Bart's. I know
True.
if KCC had not launched a consultation, then maybe we could, or there are various other proposals I think have come to our notice on which we might want to get the views of residents.
I fully understand that part. The question that's to my mind is this to, I think as you said, is this conduct consultation with residents who are actually present in the room, or is this a wider consultation? Because for a wider consultation that could be much more complex and require resources and so on. So I'll put a question mark, is this for the persons in the room or wider? And I think that's one of the things the council will need to have a view about.
Yes.
But I would recommend it's purely for people in the room.
It would be, well, I understood it to mean a wider consultation, but for anyone who thought there should be a wider consultation could move an amendment to the main motion.
What about
To say we
The
need
member of the public would like
to say we need a public consultation on this particular matter.
following a consultation of residents affected. Ian, I think Christina would like.
I just wanted to say that if you leave it in, at least you've got the option of using it should you choose to, and you don't have to. We did have a situation some time ago in a Heritage and Townscape meeting where a member of the public that was affected by a particular topic was actually invited to speak, and perhaps they might not have been able to if that point hadn't been in there.
Very true.
I can see the point of it, and I can see how you could sort of say that the Woodensborough Road thing, we could have asked them differently. But I think my question is that this is a way about the conduct of a meeting, and I think this should, for this stage, to be for any other persons present in the room or on. But I'm happy that if you folks really think that just to leave it as it is, then we'll leave it as it is.
I don't think it does any harm to leave it in.
Okay.
Martin, do you agree?
Yes.
Righto. Okay, we'll leave it in. Require a written report. So we don't need a notice to say we want a written report. We'll spend time limits for speaking. Okay. So are we content then as far as the whole 611 does not require alteration? Yep.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, 6.2, which is all about notions requiring notice. I had hoped the drills and trucking would stop, but oh well. Alright. Any...
We say 7 clear days notice.
Yes. Is that a bit restrictive now?
Yes, it is. It is.
What do we
Because
suggest?
I think at the moment the town clerk would accept motions up until the day before the agenda is posted. In other words, the agenda is published on the Thursday for the Monday meeting.
Yeah.
And I think that she should accept motions submitted to her on the Wednesday.
So what we're saying, all motions except those which require a written notice of no less than 1 clear day before publishing the agenda, because this doesn't make any reference to publishing the agenda.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Again, whoops.
Yeah, I think that's right, subject to the town clerk being happy with that.
Oh yes,
She may say she would require longer notice.
Yeah. Well, let one clear day prior to the
Publication.
scheduled date of publication of the notice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Working,
So I'll read it out.
working day.
Is it
Working day, correct.
one clear? Right. Okay. I can't even spell now. Work. It's a work day rather than a working day. Oh, right. Right. What I've got then is all motions except blah 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 require written notice of no less than one working day prior to the scheduled date of publication of the notice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To allow its inclusion in the agenda, such the right public. Right. 622, I can't see any problems there.
Mm-hmm.
623, hang on, let me save this as version 4, please. Save as version, just so we don't get documents mixed up. Thank you. Sorry about that. Amend standing orders, right. I don't know what 623.
Are we on 622?
Well, maintain a record of all motions received. I mean,
Mm.
I took that as read.
I think that's very important.
Yes, but we don't need to change it, do we?
No.
No, I just wondered whether he or she should inform the council.
Shall maintain a record received for the meeting, and we'll say and inform the council. No. Right.
No.
No, I think the fact that she's received them,
Yeah.
we're entitled
If
to see them.
if an issue arises,
Yeah.
council can ask.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. 623.
This reserves certain matters to the full
Full
council, which I think is correct.
Right. Okay. 624.
Without undue delay.
Hmm? What?
624.
I regard this as being a bit Machiavellian.
Rejected.
So there can be a motion to remove the vice chair, and the chair of the council will be informed. It doesn't say the vice chair will be informed.
Yes. The Kremlin rules apply. Right.
But I mean, it's since that we're under issues requiring notice, I suppose you could say that, well, the person concerned would see on the agenda.
Would see on the agenda. Yeah. All right. Moving to 624. (624B). That takes a lot of stuff out of business out of the council. What's
No, it's any meeting.
Yeah.
So if an issue arises, for instance, on planning, and it's sent to the
Yes.
Heritage Committee,
Yes. They can
the chair has to say, I'm sorry, you know, that's
The wrong committee
So
name.
that motion could be rejected.
Yes. Okay. Unlawful or improper subject or wording. Right. Well, similarly for the, although I can't struggle to see how that would occur, but there we
one
go.
of the mind boggles, but
Well, you have to cover all eventualities. 6-2.
You can have a lawful. I mean, if a motion is defamatory,
Yes.
yes.
for instance,
Or
then-
grossly discriminatory, or
Yes,
yes.
yeah.
Right.
I think 624 is very important
Unchanged.
because the now Mobile Code is very confusing
Is it?
as to when the town clerk can or can't withdraw, refuse to put a motion on the agenda. And we've had all sorts of problems in the past.
Have we? Okay.
And this is absolutely straightforward, which makes it quite clear that in any other circumstance, the town clerk has to put a motion
Right.
to the meeting.
Whether they like it or not,
Yes.
subject to these three conditions. Okay.
Because some town clerks think that they've got total control as to what the council can debate or not.
I'd never imagined that happened. For my time,
Yeah.
625. And this is the you said that we are technically summoned.
Yes, we are technically summoned.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Here we go. 626. That you need that flexibility.
We do need that, yes.
Yeah. Or deferral sort. What happens? Does this, do we think, cover if somebody suddenly goes off in a sick and is not able to present something? They're not withdrawing it per se, and they are not seeking a deferral per se because they may not be able to contact the council. You know, if somebody has an accident or something on their way to the council chamber. Are we content that this covers all of those sorts of eventualities?
Well, I think it does.
Yes.
Okay.
But it means the motion is not put to the meeting, so it's gone.
It falls. Yeah. Yeah.
And the person who couldn't do it always has the opportunity to put it to the next meeting.
Fine. Not quite sure I understand 627. Not really. Right. Is it just me?
Well,
Well, yeah,
I think it's fair enough. I mean,
I think so. If somebody requests the motion to be put on the agenda,
Yeah.
it's put on the agenda, it comes to the meeting. If that person doesn't move that motion,
Right.
then it should fall away.
Okay.
Isn't that
Which
right?
is not moved during the meeting without.
I think so.
I think so.
But it says not automatically be deferred, so the person would need to specifically request that it be reintroduced
Yes.
at another meeting.
Yes.
Because
Well,
what this really
it's
says is it
626.
falls.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
I mean, you could just add on 626. Otherwise, the motion will be considered withdrawn. But
Is it necessary, do you think, or is it?
I would like to see it to clarify it.
Okay, so anyway, we're also considered withdrawn and will be considered withdrawn, comma, will not be automatically deferred. Right. And will be considered to be withdrawn. Yeah? And I'll read it to you. That screen was so handy, wasn't it? Any motion which is not moved during the meeting without notice having been given under 626 will be considered withdrawn, comma, will not automatically be deferred, and will be considered to have been withdrawn.
You've already got will be.
repeat.
Pardon?
You've repeated yourself. We've already got will be considered withdrawn
Sugar, sorry.
and will not automatically be deferred. I
Oops.
think it's all right as it is.
Right, I'll add back in, sorry. My mistake, and it will not be automatically deferred. Right. Okay, 628 for the transfer room. So that this says that the right, that's fine. 628 seems fine to me.
Yes.
629. Seems fine.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, it prevents people putting in a motion condemning the coup in Sudan or something.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. 6.3. That's the description of the chair of the meeting. Right. 6.3.1 seems fairly straightforward to me.
Mm-hmm.
Proposal. I can't quite see 6.3.2. All motions require a proposal and second, but that's fine. The chair may require the motion to be provided in writing at their discretion, even if proposed during the meeting. How would that work?
Well, I think that means that if somebody proposes a motion under 6.1,
Mm-hmm.
a motion which doesn't require written notice,
Mm-hmm.
the chair can say, I want to see this motion in writing, please, so we know exactly what it is you
That
are
we're discussing.
proposing. Otherwise, you can get somebody who could propose a really complicated motion, and there are a number of times since I sat on this council where I really do not know what we're voting for.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's simple, other times I think the chair should have the right to say, look, this is very complicated, I want to know exactly what it is you're proposing in your motion, and I want to see it in writing.
Is that feasible actually in a meeting?
What we usually do is that the person reads out the motion that they want to propose, and
Yes.
the town clerk reads it back. But I think the idea that the chair can require a member to actually write it down
Yes.
is not such a bad
I
idea.
think it's quite good practice to have that.
Having said that, I think this sentence is very unclear.
It isn't.
I think it's simply the chair may require the proposer of a motion to submit it in writing,
For the
provide it in writing.
to clarify,
Well,
Just to provide it in
may require the motion to be provided in writing. Take out that at their discretion, even if proposed during the meeting.
well, how would just to be provided in writing?
Yeah. Fine. I've taken both parts out then.
Yes, I think that is clear.
Right. Okay.
I think it's an important power the chair should have.
Yep. Right. Once proposed 6.3.3. Just remove the words motion. Any member person. Again, you've got two different things here. You've got any member may request an amendment to the words of a motion. That's one point. And secondly, it's a separate issue. A proposer may only propose, withdraw or amend in agreement with their seconder. Do we want to put that in a separate paragraph?
Well, you've got a semicolon separate to it. I think it's all right.
Martin, any views?
Sorry.
6.3.3.
Yes. What was the issue?
Well, I think there's two things that are pulled together which should be separated or more clearly separated. Once proposed, any member may request an amendment to the words of the motion. Fine. Yeah, say. Then we have the proposer may only propose the withdrawal or amendment by agreement with the seconder. I'm not quite sure that you rightly pointed out there's a semicolon.
Well, you can make it a separate numbered point if you want to. Have any objection?
Martin, any views?
Yes. I don't. I suppose it's belt and braces, really.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make that a new paragraph then. Quite high.
I mean, it's a good point. That the proposer shouldn't be able to withdraw a motion if the seconder doesn't agree.
Yes, I've no issues at all with that.
We'll make it a separate numbered paragraph.
Yes,
Subparagraph.
I've got that as a new paragraph. Yeah, okay. And then eventually the automatic numbering will filter through. Okay, we'll stick with the original numbering at the moment. Amendment shall not rescind the original motion proposed. What?
Oh yes, very important.
No, somebody can't stand up and propose a motion that the motion be rescinded.
Oh, okay.
It's just you can't allow wrecking amendments.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Happy for that. Only one motion to be
I don't know
discussed.
what's rescind.
It's the wording that rather confused me. Shall not.
Something about negates the
Shall
purpose of the amendment or something, of the motion.
Shall not remove or I was thinking rescind. Rescind isn't the right word, but I don't know what other words we can use.
I think it's as good as any word.
Okay, if we can accept that, then one motion remain discussed at a time.
Well, I mean, Martin's wording is that you can't propose a wrecking motion is almost as good.
Yes.
I mean, that's not really.
But I thought
That's
It's
review of the
finding
language.
language that actually means that.
But that's what this means.
I would have to look up rescind in a dictionary.
I think, oh yes. Should we leave it at present?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
634, okay. 635, if only. 636.
One motion only.
That's why I said if only.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. 636. The chair will determine the order of speakers.
Well, he does anyway.
He does, yes. Fine. 637. Yeah, we need to take out the Portishead.
Yes. Yes.
Drawn to the behaviour policy, yes?
Yes.
Right. So behaviour policy, member and officer, have we got a member and officer protocol? No, I think we just say behaviour policy and known principles.
Agreed.
Right, okay. It wasn't until recently I discovered that Portishead was actually a town and not just a band.
Well, it's rather odd, given the purpose of this document, attention is drawn to.
Yes.
Yes, I find that.
And respect of each other.
I find that strange.
Alright, we can change it respectfully of each other in accordance with,
Yes.
or according,
Yes.
in accordance.
In accordance with or according to, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say according to. Let's try to use plain English.
Yes.
Yes. Right?
Yep.
Got that? Let me just save that. Right. Proposer of a motion or amendment shall have the right to reply prior to the matter being put to the vote. Seems sensible enough.
I think that's sensible.
I think this, just because I'm not sure if it's statutory and I don't quite remember where, but somewhere it says normally a member should only speak once in relation to a specific
Yes, it does.
motion.
Is that a statute?
Which is not at all how we actually conduct it.
No, you can't really have an open discussion if you're only allowed to say. Where is that then? Is that? I don't think we've come across that yet.
It's in the now. I'm sure it's in the now. Is it in here? I don't think it is. But let's leave that if we come across it. We'll.
Okay, so
But I think that is quite a sensible suggestion.
shall I have the right to reply?
Yes.
Well, I'm going to take a note with check
Doesn't
if
Yeah.
this overrides
Yeah.
or conflicts with speaking only once. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
So I've just added that. Check if this overrides or conflicts with speaking only once.
Yes. in the NELC standing orders, it says, unless permitted by the chair of the meeting, the council may speak once in the debate on a motion.
And have we included that in our documents?
No, we haven't, no, unless it's in this section. But it's in the rules of debate section, which is the section we're looking at now.
Right.
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is.
No.
So we want this.
I think we do need this.
I think we do this. And also I think, do we just ignore this suggestion that the NUP is, because it's not statutory, it's a suggestion.
No, it's not statutory.
Right. Well, why do we even put it in? You can only speak once on a matter. That surely that's up to the chairing.
I don't think we should have that restriction.
I mean, that's a matter of chairing.
Yes.
Saying, Fred, you've made your point twice. Now, please, can we move on?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a chair should do,
Yes.
I would have thought.
Yeah.
Right, okay, agreed. A member raising a point of order referred to the specific provision of the...
That is
So
very,
we just agreed not to include the NALC
yes,
Yes,
thing, but we're keeping this.
yes.
yes, we're keeping the 6 feet, what I've got is proposal and motion, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
And what I'll do is then, I had a note, but I'll take that note out, saying check if this conflict with NUP. It does, but it's not a statutory NUP.
No.
Okay. Very trying to answer the first specific provision.
639 is very important.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, otherwise you go off at so many tangents.
Because otherwise, people just stand up and say, point of order, when all they're doing is interrupting the speaker because they want to make another point.
Yeah.
And too often, that used to happen in the previous
Yes,
and Christina is nodding her head vigorously.
I remember watching it occasionally. But again, that's a matter of chairing as well.
It's a matter of good sharing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, right. Moving on, 6.3.10. No other motion be moved except amend, put it to vote, adjourn, refer to the committee, take any actions or on exclusions, suspend any standing order. Sounds fine to me. 6.3.10.
Yeah, section 6.5 refers to disorderly conduct.
Yes. Yeah.
And section 7.1 refers to confidential
Yes.
information.
Yeah.
So that is very sensible.
That's fine. Right. Run with that then. Motion to the chair is aligned to the proposals right under 6.3.8. Let's just check 6.3.8. Yeah. I think 6.3.11 fine. That ties in with what was said about the proposer has the right to have the
Yes.
final.
I think that is very important.
Yeah. All right. Right. And 6.3.12.
Correct.
And then it's in the correct order.
Yeah.
That's when the original one. The original version becomes the substantive. Amended.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
that makes
Yeah,
sense. All
That
right.
makes sense.
Fine. 6.3 complete. 6.4 temporary suspension of standing orders. Except. 6.4.1. It's not statutory. You can. Put it
If
in
not
there.
statutory, the council can vote
Yeah.
to suspend temporarily any standing order.
Yeah.
I can't quite think when they might, but I think it's important power
They need that.
to give members.
Well, it's in my view, duplicates 6.3.10F.
It does a bit.
Yeah, that's but perhaps we need to be specific about when you can, how you do it. I'm not quite sure how 6.4.2 applies,
No,
because if it's non-statutory, the
we've already said.
officer may say, I wouldn't do it if I were you, but it's still up to the council to say, well, thank you, but we're doing it. Or have I got that wrong? 642.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay,
I
so
don't
the
see
chair.
any need for it, frankly.
I don't see a need for
I
it.
don't see any need for a separate
642.
section on suspension of standing order.
I think that's right, actually. I don't think one does need that.
So which am I deleting? 642 or both of them?
No, you need I think you need 641,
Right.
but you don't need that.
Fine. 642 is out. Disorderly conduct. None. Is there anything contentious in this at all?
Through alcohol or other substances. It's very discreet.
Yes, well,
This expands
652.
on what the now model code has.
yeah,
And I think it's actually, they're all, I can't see any problems
with any of them.
with any of it.
No. Martin, are you content?
Yes?
Right, 6.5 stands as is. Right, God, we're motoring it now.
Yeah,
We are motoring, gosh.
Yeah.
Confidential matters.
7.1 is, no, it's not.
It's not statutory.
No, sorry, my eyes are going.
It was only my eyes, it's the brain in my case, but
Hmm?
it's the brain in my case that's gone, I think.
My eyes are
Which,
give up with you.
are we looking at 611?
711.
711, sorry, yes.
Yes. Yes, shall disclose to any person or member any information
Which they believe to be confidential.
or which was provided normally. That's very broad brush, that. If they believe it to be confidential, that could be abused.
Oh, yes.
Do you think I could ask you to read it out? Because
Yes,
I haven't got
no,
this-
no member of the council, where a member is either a councillor or an officer, shall disclose to any person not a member of the council any information which they believe to be confidential, or which was provided to them in circumstances that normally would give rise to that belief. It's gobbledygook.
Is this within the context of a meeting or just generally?
It's just generally. I mean, you either are told something, this is in confidence, or clearly there are some things which are confidential, like personal information, but I'm not sure what else.
Yeah, I mean, in my view, the way in which we should vote on exclusion of the public should also apply to the confidentiality of any information handled by the council.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is just a calm coaching horses.
It is.
I don't like it at all.
You have to specify what information is confidential,
Yes.
and that should be handled as part of the statutory process.
And there are rules for that anyway.
Once the proper officer distributes, or presumably any member of the council, specifically saying that the information is confidential, and we've had cases very recently, it's just a blanket. Once a member says this information is confidential, it should not be passed to anyone outside the council, I think is what we should do.
Yes, but it's got to be very clearly confidential as defined by statute.
Oh, we're getting into
Well,
huge
no, that's-
difficulty here. in saying what is confidential that's defined by statute. You mentioned the local restrictions where we vote on that as being confidential. Those are set out in the Local Government Act Schedule 12, which sets out only specific heads which allow information to be exempt from disclosure. It doesn't say what is other things can be confidential in addition to that.
I see.
I think
Christine.
Yes, and there is a timing issue as well, because certain things may be confidential at a certain time, but later on that they are disclosable.
Yeah.
And I think also the Freedom of Information Act needs to be referenced in this, because if something should be disclosed under Freedom of Information, then that is not confidential.
No.
It might not be something you want to broadcast, but it's not confidential if it's asked about.
Right. So is this a complete rewrite then? 711.
I think it deserves it, frankly.
I would say this is, as Peter Breen reminded us the expression, LMB, legal mumbo jumbo,
Well,
which means very little when you come to it. And I think it's been put in just as a general statement about confidentiality. And I think it presents more problems than it answers.
do you wish me to delete it? The whole of 711.
Well, I think we need to look at 712 and 713 as well,
Right.
before
Okay.
we decide whether you actually want
Right. Let's look at those.
any of this section in here.
Yes. Sorry.
I think you will need something to clarify confidentiality, but where it sits it is another question.
Yeah.
Because historically, items that were required disclosure under the Transparency Code have at times in meetings, people have said, actually that's confidential, we can't disclose that, and yet it's something that should be published. So there's been confusion around this, and actually it would probably be useful to everybody if it could be very clearly laid out.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's run through these four clauses and just see, once we've had a review of them, whether the whole thing needs a rewrite or whether it's just one part of it. So we look at 712 and 713 and 714 and see how they refer to 711, if at all.
As far as I know, the suggestion of protective markings here is completely random and without legal basis. Restricted is a known category, which some of us know about,
Yes.
and private and confidential is also widely used. But I mean, why limit it to these two categorisations? If you simply write confidential, does that mean it doesn't qualify? Because it's not private and confidential. I think this should be rewritten.
The principle in law with the council, which we should abide by, is basically that everything the council does is public and it should be open and transparent and disclosed, unless it is exempt from disclosure.
Yes.
Right? And then you then look at the Local Government Act and the Data Protection Act and GDPR to decide whether the specific information can be withheld from disclosure. I mean, that, to my mind, that should be our starting point.
Can I ask a
Yes.
simple question? Are the criteria in the Local Government Act the same as those under Freedom of Information?
I think
They
freedom
are-
of innovation are wider.
They look the same, but
They are similar,
yeah.
but there is also the question of the public interest
Yes.
test, where information which may be exempt should be disclosed because there's a public interest in it being
Yeah.
disclosed. There are absolute provisions against disclosure under the Data Protection Act, i.e. people's personal information,
Yes.
which can't be disclosed under any circumstances. And then you've got to look at GDPR, and you then got to look at Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act, which sets out those areas which are exempt from disclosure. So personally, I would actually think that we should take the whole of Section 7 out. I don't think standing orders is the right place to start discussing about confidentiality. I think one has to rely on the law and the principle that the principle of openness and transparency subject to the law against non-disclosure. That would be my feeling. I think this is an attempt to, because the NALC model code makes no mention of confidentiality. Our current standing orders make no mention of confidentiality. And I think this is an attempt to bring some sort of statement to councillors about confidentiality in their dealings, but I don't think this is the right place for it. And I would be happy that we remove the whole of Section 7 from our standing orders.
What I was going to suggest, as I'm trying to pick this up and then get the principle is that unless a matter is exempted by Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act,
Not only that.
no, I'm coming, comma, GDPR provisions, well, there was a third item,
The
wasn't
Data
there?
Protection Act,
Or the Data Protection Act.
which actually incorporates GDPR now, since Brexit. GDPR actually doesn't really
Then-
exist anymore.
Okay,
It's all,
so
it's all part of the Data Protection Act.
Righto. May I suggest this? I'm just going to say the principle is that unless a matter is exempted by Schedule 12A of the LGA, GDPR provisions or Data Protection Act, then all matters are open. Or all matters may be disclosed. Is that too far?
I don't think I'd want to say that.
In that case, we just...
Not without discussing it with a specialist lawyer. I really wouldn't. We're getting it. It's a real minefield. We can get ourselves into a huge difficulty. I'd rather we took this out completely.
Delete.
What I think I'd like to do is have a discussion with the town clerk about confidentiality generally, and as to how she will handle it here with us,
Right.
and how we know the law. She knows the law. I know a bit of the law about it, and I would like to discuss Section 7 with her and put it in the bounds till we have a meeting with her.
Right. Can I? Okay. What I've done is I've just put an additional comment, carrying on from the heading 7.1. Suggest delete 7.1, but discuss with town clerk. Yes.
Yes, I would like.
Well,
Discuss.
I still tend towards the next view that if we don't need to mention this, we should leave it out. But
I'd rather we left it out, but I'd like to discuss that issue with the town clerk as to how and where, as to how the council, how we intend to handle this matter in the council generally. Christina is waving her hands.
Christina.
delete 7.1 and then
I just wanted to mention that one of the viewers has said that there's a government classification scheme and that might be a good starting point, but they've also said that actually the town clerk needs to be consulted, and that's really important.
Yes.
So you've covered that.
Thank you.
That's what we said.
That's fine. Whoever said that, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the note I've got suggests delete 7.1, but discuss with the town clerk as to how we intend to deal with such matters. And there is a classification scheme exists.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have an idea that my notes are going to be the same as yours, Ian, but maybe that's a bad thing.
Well, I think, no, I'm doing specific changes, and if you can just sort of take notes of what we discussed a bit more. Right, okay, in that case, shall we move on to 7.2?
Yes.
I have a problem with 7.21A.
Now, F to the end are statutory.
Yes.
A to E
Are
are
not.
discretionary and up to us.
I have a problem with 721A in that if I rely upon the town council's systems, I cannot annotate, highlight, or anything else like that, and to be confronted with 120 pages of paper is unacceptable. So therefore I do have a problem with that.
I think we all do.
In which case, I don't see how it's workable. It's not workable.
I mean, in theory it is right that we ought to, official council business should be undertaken using system provided by the council.
Yes.
Like our
Yeah, the iPads.
I agree, but the problem is it doesn't work
Exactly.
because the iPads are defective.
Yes.
Well, it's just they haven't got the software built in. There's software
We
available.
didn't even need to have word on it. They couldn't even write a document on the iPad till 3 months ago.
Right. We are in a new regime. I'm really going on this.
Just as an aside, one of the viewers has asked, are there guidelines for chairing meetings? Because we've spoken about things being the responsibility of the chair. Are there some guidelines? And it could be a completely separate document, but it was said on a couple of occasions, will it be up to the chair to deal with that?
That strikes me as very, very, very dangerous. I prefer that we have a great degree of
Discretion.
Well, look,
It's just a question that's come up, so I thought
I
I'd
don't think we
reference
can
it.
answer that at the moment.
Okay.
7.2, what do we want to say about using only systems? Because I have a real problem because the systems aren't up to it at the moment.
Well, some members of the council haven't even got the working iPad.
Haven't they?
No, and it doesn't work.
I think the only useful sub-para here is E, apart from statutory.
Yeah, I think you're right. We could almost, it says these may include. Should we delete?
I think you could delete A to E.
I certainly would go A to D without any question. But it may include undertaking training as identified, providing appropriate level of knowledge. Right, I think I'm going to delete A to D. Yeah?
Hey, look what we find in J.
Hmm?
Councillors, staff, councils, contracted agents shall not disclose confidential information or personal data without legal justification.
That's what the Act says.
And so therefore we don't need 7.1 at all.
I don't think we do.
Okay, that's good, well spotted. So I see 7.2, what is it, F, is it?
Yeah, F. Yeah.
No, J, 7.2J. Completely negates the whole of 7.2.
Yes.
Right, fine. Right, so I will delete the whole of that. Right.
Sorry, what are you deleting?
I'm deleting the whole of 7.1.
Oh, yes.
The statute is clear.
Sorry, what are you deleting?
7.1. Handing
The whole section, what you wanted to do.
which is
Oh,
what,
that's what I wanted to do anyway.
yeah.
Yes, thank you.
It takes a while before the cogs mesh properly, you know. But yes, I mean, the J is 7.2J is very clear. Council staff and agents shall not disclose confidential information or personal data without legal justification. That sums it up far more succinctly. Right?
Oh, yes. And we got 733 as well. Well, what do we do with 7.2? We
Well,
delete
7.2,
everything but the statutory part.
I think I think that 7.2 should just start 7.2.1, the council
Shall have
and
policies.
then 7.2.1a, the council should have policies, and then just literally the statutory.
yes, I think let's confine it to that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then, okay, so 7.2 point, yeah. Right, that's fine, I've got that. So I'm deleting now 7.2.1, I'm deleting, and if we start off with 7.2a becomes the council shall have policies, which is these,
Yes.
yeah, content? Right, thank you. Gosh, we're taking stuff out. Right, confidentiality within meetings, 7.3. Any issues? 7.3.
Sorry, just bear with me.
Could you read it out for us, please?
It's about a page and a half.
Oh dear. Sorry.
It's about confidentiality within meetings, and basically it says if there are certain things you can exclude because the legislation allows you to exclude them, and that's
It will be by resolution which will give reasons for the public's exclusion.
Yeah.
That is very
Perfect.
important.
yes,
Those words are very important.
that's great.
That's something which the council never used to do. It just said, we're resolving it confidential.
And then it gives you some specific wordings that, in accordance with the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, such we predish of the public interest by reason of the confidential nature of the business to be transacted, the meeting resolves that the public and press will be temporarily excluded.
We incidentally used to be far more rigorous in Westgate about collecting pink copies of documents distributed during the meeting. But I don't see any reference to that here.
Pink
directly.
copies. I haven't come across any pink copies.
Oh, well, confidential information was printed on pink paper,
Yes.
distributed in the meeting and collected after the meeting.
Oh,
And
now
we
it goes
usually
out
hadn't numbered or even named copies.
Yeah, we tend to send them out with the agenda to councillors only,
Yeah.
Council-
as exhibits rather than attachments
Yeah.
on
But-
pink paper, and then they are never collected afterwards.
It has happened on occasion where an item was proposed to be confidential. It was then being decided in the meeting that it wasn't confidential, but the public never got sight of the documentation, which was then actually deemed accurately to not be confidential. So it's a slightly tricky situation because actually the public is entitled to sight of that, but the process doesn't
Practicality.
permit it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's what pinks are. Sorry, I thought pink was the colour of the Financial Times, so the pink one, but shows you how behind the times I am.
Well, I mean, I don't think it needs to be referred to necessarily here. It's a question of just being
Well, I
careful.
suppose,
I mean, I find this this text actually very useful in that it's very factual, specific,
Yes.
and seems to state clearly a lot of the things that weren't stated clearly elsewhere.
Okay.
It does do that. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. Okay, so it makes it clear where we've got the right records remain confidential. 734 needs amending, doesn't it? Because we haven't got a
Just
personal.
called, yeah.
So
Certainly, Martin, I think your point about the handling of confidential documents is something which we should discuss with the town clerk, because we are very, very bad about that.
Yeah.
That's just an aside.
sorry, Nick, I was typing something else. So could you repeat, please? About confidential.
No, I just said that I think the council generally needs to think hard about the way it handles confidential hard copies of confidential information.
Okay, do you want me to put that as a note?
No,
here?
no,
Okay, right.
it's just an aside.
It's an aside. Okay, fine. Thank you, Christina. I think I saw a hand waving.
Yeah, and can I add as an aside, which I think is quite important, that when it comes to things that may be treated as confidential because it's commercial information, that is only confidential for a period of time while it's sort of we're going through a negotiation process. Month or two down the road, if that's been printed on pink, people might continue to think that actually that is non-disclosable, but a month or two down the road, that is actually completely disclosable.
The section 733 cover this. It said records of matters discussed in confidential session will remain confidential while the reason for confidentiality remains,
Right.
Yeah.
subject to the Freedom of Information Act, etc.
Okay, thank you for raising that, and also thanks for clarifying that.
Well, of course.
Yes,
Okay,
but it is worth pointing it out.
right, we've finished section 7. Crikey. We are moving. How are we doing for time? Yeah. Section 8, Code of Conduct and Declaration of Interests.
I'm sorry, can we go back to 734?
Yes.
Because it refers at the end pursuant to section 715, which we have omitted, now deleted.
Right, such a gentleman to the other members who were asked by the committee chair for those items. Well, it doesn't say, if you just put a full stop after items,
Yes,
full stop there, and then delete the rest.
agreed.
Fine. Right.
Vacate the room.
Sorry? Fine.
Well, I thought the normal word was excluded from the meeting. We want to vacate the room.
Well, I don't know, exclusion implies you're not allowed in the first place. I don't know.
Okay, it's clear what it is.
It is clear.
Right. Thank you. Section 8. All members are sandwich on that. Now,
Are they? Do they have to be reported to the council?
suspect, I don't know, it just seems a bit of overkill.
812.
Well, 813 though is the statutory requirement. So to consider what.
Suspected breaches of the code will be referred to the monitoring officer. And what you're querying and reported to the council.
Yes,
Are you, Martin?
Yes.
because 813 doesn't say you have to do that. 813 says you have to consider what action to take against the individual.
But 812 is suspected breaches.
Yes, 813.
813 is when
Proved
the district or
breaches.
unity
Sorry,
council
okay.
has decided that.
Well, what's a suspected? I mean, is that something as? I'm trying to find something that's extremely trivial compared to someone sort of losing the plot and taking a swing at some other councillor. I mean, there's a bit of a spectrum, isn't there? Should it be suspected serious breaches of the code of conduct? Then of course you have a question of what's serious mean. So that's 812. Should it just be serious breach? Because calling somebody a rude name might not be a very serious breach depending on the language used. If I call someone a right or use a choice Scottish phrase.
Well,
I don't know.
our present code of conduct says, upon notification by the district council that it is dealing with a complaint that a councillor has breached the council's code, the proper officer shall report this to the council.
Okay.
So at the moment, when the monitoring officer receives a complaint, he will inform the proper officer, I have received a complaint about the conduct of ABC, and then the proper officer will then report it to the council, which is sort of what this sentence says.
It's set to its
Yes.
I was going to say the question I'm going to ask.
Who can report a suspected breach of conduct? I mean,
Anybody,
including
a councillor.
anybody,
If
excluding council. I mean,
I think you breached the code.
you as a
I
councillor,
as a councillor can report to the monitoring officer.
and Christina
A member-
report the three of
A
us.
member of the public could report you to the monitoring officer.
Oh dear me. Oh dear me. It sounds like the Committee of Public Safety.
Something like that.
Yes, and then, I mean, that is fairly clear that it's the job of the proper officer to report to the council, but here it doesn't say who reports it to the council.
Right, so what do we need to say?
But I would be happy if we imported what we have in our existing code of conduct, which I just read out.
Right. Could you read it to me again? Sorry, I'll try to type as fast as I can.
Well, it's item 15A
Okay, I'll just take a note. See,
in our current standard ordinance.
15A of the current SOs. Okay, I'll add that later then.
Yes, although it's a need looking at because it says subject to Standing Order 11.
Yeah, so
I'm not sure.
well, I don't. All right. So 813 is clear that Peter has changed this back from Dover District Council to the District or Unitary Council, which is obviously the NALC wording, the statutory wording.
Yes.
And the council reserves, in 814, council reserves the right to suspend or permanently remove, by motion at a meeting, any office held by that member, including chair, vice chair. This almost says, well, it's what do we think about 814, which is the council reserves the right to suspend or permanently remove by motion at a meeting any office held by that member, including chair, vice chair, or membership of a committee, where it deems that doing so is necessary for protection of the dignity of the office held, or failure to do so would bring the council into disrepute. This may be irrespective of any final decision of
Yeah.
a monitoring officer. It's a bit contradictory, isn't it?
Mm. Well,
You can't suspend somebody permanently and only be told by their monitoring officer they've got it with, it's not serious. At least
I'm not sure whether the council has the right to permanently
I
remove
don't think they
a
have.
councillor.
I don't think they have. Suspend, yes, clearly.
yes, and at the end of 813, which was statutory, we have such action excludes disqualification or suspension from office. I'm not quite sure what office means.
I don't even think we have the right to suspend a councillor.
Is it a case of suspending their position as a chair of a committee or something? So when it speaks of office, is it speaking about perhaps them chairing? Because I don't believe you have the authority to suspend a councillor as such, but you can suspend an office being fulfilled by a councillor if an allegation is deemed serious enough to affect the functioning of that office or of that committee, let's say.
Okay, thank you for that. That may be the right approach.
So this is only referring to
Office.
an office, i.e. a chair of a committee or vice chair of a committee or membership of a committee.
And then, in that case, this may be irrespective of any final decision by the monitoring officer. Okay, well, are we content?
I think it's probably all right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Moving. 8.2, disclosure of interests. And this again is statutory, so there's no point in discussing it. 8.3 is also statutory. So we move straight on to 8.4, other restrictions on councillor activities.
Sorry, on 8.2, what did you say?
I said it's a statutory. 8.2 is all statutory.
Yes.
Why have I got a note saying this paragraph does not appear in the NARC model and therefore shall?
Which paragraph?
8.2.
Can you read the paragraph? Starting a councillor with
voting rights, who has a disclosable pecuniary interest. I don't know who's got this footnote.
I don't know.
Is it?
I mean, it's true, if it's not an NARC model, then it can't be statutory,
Yes.
presumably. If we've got an up-to-date copy of NARC one. If we've got an up-to-date copy of the NARC
I
one.
have, yeah.
Sorry, you are.
No, you're right. Look, if we don't ask the questions, then something will slip through the cracks.
Yes.
Right, could I leave it as an action for you to check, please?
Yes.
Okay.
Leave that and let me check that one.
Check.
Because the now code is very confusing.
I thought it was supposed to be laid out by experts who were making things very clear to councils.
Well, it's like documents that are being revised and revised
I
time and time again
know.
by committees, and then nobody ever stops and takes a fresh look at it.
Camels spring to mind.
Yes.
Not even racing camels.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. Thanks for that, Martin. Let's get that cleared. I've got a note of that. 8.4, other restrictions on councillor activities. 8.41, a councillor shall claim. It should be, a councillor shall not claim to represent the council without a
There
resolution.
should be a not in there.
Otherwise, I shall claim that I am.
No councillor, I suspect.
or no councillor, or
No, it should say no councillor shall claim,
right.
or councillor shall not.
Right. Well, it's probably clearer to say no councillor shall claim. Because there's no councillor in others.
Yeah.
And shall inspect any land or premises which the council has a right to duty to inspect or issue orders, instructions and directions. Unless authorised by a resolution, no councillor shall inspect any land or
Say the
premises.
same thing again and again.
Why shouldn't you be permitted to inspect any land that the council owns? I mean, you may have a planning application coming up.
That's in the now code, and it's in our current standing orders. But I'm not quite sure. It's not statutory, and I'm not quite sure why it's applied.
And why do I have to have permission to go and inspect a bit of land or premises when it's something that the council already has a right or duty to inspect or investigate?
I mean, I think the key to this is actually at the end.
Issues orders.
The key to it is the one at the end.
It's not that the councillor, it's not so much that the councillor can't inspect any land, it's that the councillor can't issue instructions or directions unless authorised by a resolution.
Yeah, that makes sense, but otherwise, we wouldn't be allowed to do X, Y, and Z. So we suggest unless authorised by resolution, no councillor may issue orders or instructions
You see, the NELC model code says quite clearly, unless duly authorised, no councillor shall 1. Inspect any land or premises which the council has a right or duty to inspect, nor issue orders, instructions or directions.
You can see the logic of issue orders. No, you're not allowed to order issues or orders, instructions or directions without the council resolution. Well, why can't you go and have a look?
Well, when it says that where the council has a right or duty to inspect, I think we're talking here about leasehold properties where the landlords can inspect the property, and I think they don't want individual councillors going there. So the landlord then to turn around and say, well, Councillor Black was here last week, he said everything was all right.
The council agreed to disagree.
And the council has just served a huge schedule of dilapidations on the tenants.
What is the reason why?
That would be my reason why
Okay.
for that restriction.
And I'm inclined to go along the same lines. The key is very much in the word individual, because someone else might say that the councillor said this, said that.
Yeah.
There's no witnesses. If you're an
Yeah.
individual, you've got no witness. And I think that's the important part of that sentence, really.
Yeah. And the words which the council has a right or duty to inspect, investigate, I think points to that interpretation.
Yes.
Because you could get into huge problems with tenants.
So, are we
I would
content with it then?
I would leave it.
All right.
It being in our standing order, now covered in our model code.
Yeah.
And
Come to the view that the key is actually the word inspect as
yes,
opposed to visit.
yes. Yes.
Okay.
So inspect implies some sort of
It doesn't mean you can't.
supervision.
It doesn't mean you can't go to the cinema, but it does mean
You
you
can't
can't go to the cinema
for
and tell
inspection.
the owner that he doesn't have to worry about the fact that he doesn't comply with fire regulations, which he probably does.
Okay.
Financial regulation.
No, we're on 8.4. We've just finished 8.4.2. We're on 8.4.3.
Yes.
No council represents a personal view. Yeah, that can't see any problem with 8.4.3
I mean,
or 8.4.4.
For me, this is all duplication. But
Well, yes,
I think there's no harm in repeating it here.
okay. Right then, gosh. Section 9. Right. Anyway, lads, we might have finished this today. Sorry, Christine.
I'm sorry, I'm not exactly sure where this would fit within the current document, but there's a question here. Could the working group consider the importance of other public records, such as the Charity Commission, etc., having up-to-date details for councillor appointments? Not sure if this falls within the remit of the standing orders.
I don't think it does.
Sorry, up-to-date appointments.
Well, when it comes to the Charities Commissions, councillors may have involvement with various charities, and it's about keeping the registrations up to date. It's difficult because I suppose it's to do with transparency.
It is difficult because the duty to keep a charity's report on the Charity Commission is a charity's duty. It's
Yes.
not our duty,
Yes.
and we can't do that.
I think it's inappropriate.
I mean, the council do nominate members or trustees to two charities, right? But the fact whether the charity's registration of the Charity Commission is up to date, I don't think the council's got any, can't do that.
No.
Anyway,
It seems it's an important point. We
Mm.
don't want to minimise that. However, I don't think it's part of the standing orders. I think there's a separate thing about the way the whole way the council
yes.
interacts with charities, and especially where councillors are appointed as trustees.
Yes.
I think that's a separate issue which will need to be covered at some stage by the council. I don't disagree with that, but I don't think it's part of this remit, which is about the general behaviour of the council. Okay? But we need to pick it up. Could you take a note of that, please? There was the question about how do, what the council does with charities in terms of these matters. Right, section 9. Are we going to get through this? Right.
Can I just say 911
Yes.
is not, whilst it's in bold, it is not in the now model code,
Yes.
and it actually doesn't. And as I said, it's not in the NELP code, so I don't know whether it is statutory or not.
Peter has taken it out. I think there's been a discussion before. It says
Yes.
formatted
Yes.
font not bold.
I think Bob Scotland pointed out to us
Yeah.
that is actually not statutory
Right.
and is not in the NELP model code.
So, do we wish then to still continue the practice of anything in excess of 25,000 shall be on the basis of a formal tender? I don't know if 25,000 is the right level or anything like that.
I think these are covered by the next, it's all covered by the next statutory points.
Which, I don't know, shall I read out the wording that Peter has left for us? 912, where the value of a contract is likely to exceed the threshold specified by the Office of Government Commerce from time to time, the Council must consider whether the Public Contracts Regulations 2015 or the Utilities Contracts Regulation 2006 apply to the contract, and if either of those regulations apply, the Council must comply with the UK Government Public Procurement Rules. And then he's got a note, NAC's procurement guidance contains no further details.
Firstly, I understood that the financial regulations would be a separate document rather than being included in the standing orders.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think it's futile to put specific limits in the text, except maybe as an annex which can be revised by the RFO.
Okay,
These limits here are statutory limits, and the law is at the moment.
but they don't refer to I've just seen it. If we look at
Oh, I see, I'm sorry.
Yes,
I
they
thought-
do.
913,
Yes,
It's just,
yes.
because 912 says you have to follow the current regulation, and that obviously will be altered by inflation and other things. So 912 is fairly clear. 913, a public contract regulated by the Public Contracts Regulation 2015 with an estimated value in excess of 25,000 but less than the relevant threshold in section 912 is subject to regulations 109 to 114 of the Public Contracts Regulations 2015, which includes a requirement for the Council to advertise the contract opportunity on the Contract Finder website, regardless of what other means it uses, to advertise the opportunity unless proposers to use an existing list approved. So all that says is anything over 25,000 has to be properly advertised. It doesn't say you've got to go to tender.
No.
it doesn't say.
912, 913, 914, 915 are statutory.
No.
Yes, but,
Sorry,
sorry, what I wanted to make was, they may be statutory, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be in the standing orders. They have to be somewhere in the council's regulations and
I think
internal rules.
they may say they have to be in our standing orders.
I put the question, and again, perhaps we need to get Jill's input on this. Under section 9, financial controls deeds, should this really be in standing orders?
Yeah.
Let's put that as the question mark there. Now,
I think the answer is yes, but I'm not 100% certain,
Yep.
and I will have to go back to
if
the
you could
original legislation
to
and
check.
check whether they have to be in standing orders.
Okay, Martin, could you take a note of that,
Yes.
please? And 913, my reading of 913 is that you have to advertise anything over 25,000 unless you've got approved suppliers. But it doesn't say anything about formal tender.
911 is not statutory.
It's not statutory, but does it make
It's up
sense?
to us if we want to put it in at all, or if it's not statutory, it doesn't have to be in standing orders, and it should be in our financial regulations, not
Okay.
here. These ones, I think, do have to be in standing orders, but I'm not 100%, I will check. If they do, they stay. If not, they could go into our financial regulations.
Okay, I've got a note.
Does that make sense?
Yes, what I've got a note is 911. I've said it should be in the financial regulations rather than not in the standing orders. I've added that note. You're going to, sorry.
If it has to be in the standing orders, can we make the financial regulations an annex to the standing orders? Because I mean, to just throw all this in, it seems it's not at all.
I suspect this
With
is
the flavour
historical.
and the rest
Just
of it.
dump it.
But anyway,
No, I think
Nick will
you're
do that
right.
for us, won't you?
Yeah, I will, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
right, so we're now on 914. Now, Peter has got this as formatted not bold. So, he seems to think that...
No, I don't think it's right. They
Ah,
are not in the NELC Standard Model Code because the NELC Model Code considers that parish councils are very unlikely to enter into a contract with a value in excess of 189,930.
How do I meet this?
Similarly, 915 deals with supply of gas, heat, electricity, etc. in excess of 378,660 for a supply,
Well,
or 4 million for a works contract.
Well,
So their view is that these two sections just do not apply to town or parish councils.
right.
And I assume that is why they are statutory, but they are not shown in the NALC model code.
that's very helpful.
Okay, I've taken a note of it, and let me type it up and I'll read it back to you.
Now, I don't know why they're not in the NALC model code. I will ask Bob Scruton, having been chair of NALC at one point, as to why they're not in the NALC model code. And I think that's the answer he'll give me.
Okay. And so, not. I should have learnt to do proper typing, shouldn't I? Not statutory. Right. The note I've got is the NALC model does not consider parishes will incur such sums, rather than these sums, and so they are not statutory for parishes. But they are statutory for...
It's not that
They
they're
are
not
statutory for parishes.
Yeah.
It's just parishes are exceedingly unlikely ever to need to invoke these, because the sums of money are so huge they're only applied to county councils.
Well, they apply to
city
everyone,
council.
But they are
effective.
statutory. Okay. So technically they are statutory, but are very unlikely to be invoked.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And NELC have omitted them from their model code.
Okay, there's not sums. Oh, statutory. Right, just a minute, I'm trying to get a note of this because... Oh, come on, statutory. But are
Irrelevant.
not in the NALC code for I'm still right.
I see it's 1214.
Hmm?
I see it's 1214.
Yes,
actually.
yes. Well, we're nearly there, actually.
Well, I've got the NALC model code does not consider parishes will incur such sums. They are statutory, but are not in the NALC code for parishes.
Just say they're not in the NELC model code.
For parishes,
It's more specifically for parishes.
not in the NALC.
Well, I don't know whether it is. Just say that they're not in the current NELC model standing model code.
Right. I love this clear vision that we've got. Not much more we can say then for 914 and 915. No, we're kind of banjaxed on this one. Right. I'll take an L, going to save that. Digressing. Jill did ask if we should invite Karen at the same time, and I suggested yesterday no, because we weren't really going through the financials. But I mean, in view of this, do we want Karen in for a few minutes at the next meeting?
I don't think it's really necessary because the only bits we're putting in here are about financial regulations are statutory.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
I wouldn't say, no, I would leave it up to Karen, but you can point out.
Yes.
Well, okay, maybe I went one step
We will-
further and I
we
said
will-
I didn't suggest it was right for her to come because we're not talking at the financials in
We will
detail.
need her input when
That's-
we are dealing with the financial.
That's what
regulations.
that's the point I made, that when we're dealing with that, we of course would want her.
Yeah.
It may be that Jill just would value the experience here of somebody who's been around for much longer.
I hadn't considered that. I was thinking purely on lines of
Function.
roles and responsibilities. I hadn't considered that bit, but I can revise it if you wish. I mean, say, look, you know, if you really want Karen to be there because of her knowledge of what's gone on in the past, we would have no objections.
Well, I wouldn't object to her being here anyway.
It was just.
It's a question of the use of her time.
Well, I think that's what I was trying to think of. You know.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. Execution and sealing of legal deeds.
I think the two things on deeds are important.
921 and 922. Well, 922 is statutory.
Stat-
And 921 is very important to
Okay.
So we need that, and they're very specific.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I've got that. I'm saving that.
10 should be somewhere further up where we can talk about information.
Well, they're both statutory.
It's
So
very statutory.
where we put them is another matter.
What is wrong with putting them in a separate section at the end?
Well, Martin was concerned that he thought someone else might be appropriate.
I mean, in section 7, on this,
Section 7 is confidential matters.
Is this not a fundamental requirement of town council? Well, it's in statutory, so it is. I'm not sure what else
I
you
know
would
it
put.
looks a bit as if it's just been tacked onto the end, but maybe that's because there is no other suitable place for them.
Okay.
well, that's the sort of thing we can check at the end of the process.
I
isn't it?
don't see a problem with that.
Roles, structure of the committee, committees, meetings, notice of meetings. Unless you put it somewhere in section 4, which is notice of meetings.
But this has nothing to do with meetings.
No, it isn't. No, you're right. Well, I'm just thinking about notice of. You know.
Yeah. I'll just leave it.
Okay, stand. Gentlemen, lady, I didn't think it would happen, but we've got to the end of this first document,
Yeah.
which that's rather surprising.
Maybe we're missing the input from our two fellow councillors.
Well, there are two responses to that, aren't there? We weren't going to in public. Right. What I will do is then I'll send this to Peter. Well, I'll first of all establish when Peter thinks he might be well enough to look at it.
Yeah.
If not, I will do my very best to send Jill a copy with the original changes and one that accepts all the changes.
Okay.
So she's got this, well, that doesn't seem quite right. I see why they've changed it.
Yes.
I think that might be the best way forward. Yeah?
Yes.
But let me try to find out if Peter is back home yet and how he feels. I mean, if he feels not up to it, he feels not up to it. That's not an issue. We are scheduled, I think, to have another meeting on the 6th. We've said that we would probably call it for 2 more meetings after that. But what would they be covering? What are the next set of documents we would be covering?
what is the remit of our working party? Is it just to look at standing orders? Or
And
is it
financial regulations.
Oh, well, we should look at financial regulations next.
Do we have a master copy of them, and are any of them covered by NALC?
Pass. I think some probably are. I think they may be on our latest financial regulation, maybe on our website. They are on our website.
The financial regulations were reviewed not all that long ago. They were updated to take into account the staff changes,
Yes.
and they have traditionally also been reviewed in the early part of the year, over the last couple of years anyway.
Yeah.
So they've had more reviews and perhaps more quality reviews than the standing orders.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. So it says that that's certainly part of the remit of this group. Is to look at it. And
Does
if we
our
can-
remit extend on to terms of reference of committees and schedules of delegation? Does it?
I think it does,
Yeah.
but we're not going to be able to get all of that done before the next council meeting.
No, we're not.
So we perhaps set ourselves a realistic target, which is standing orders,
Yeah.
financial regs if we can,
Yeah.
and say, okay, you the town council, because what do you think? Because there are also many other points that we raise, say just even for the sake of the layout of this room and standing up at
Yeah.
council meetings and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So we have to take a view about what we send to the council. Clearly that's a key document, and the financial reg will be a key
I
document.
think we should look at those next, financial regulations
Okay.
next.
Well, shall I set an hour aside for Jill on the 6th, and then the second hour to be on the financial regulations? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will do.
And I think in terms of reporting to the council, I think we've spoken about the main report highlighting the issues that we think they should
Which is what we said we would do.
focus on.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, but they have to approve the whole standing orders document first, don't they?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Excellent.
By the gods.
Same time next week?
Few minutes to go. Thank you.
Yes.
Same
Um,
time?
Date of next meeting is the
It's
6th.
the 6th, yes, Thursday the 6th, and I think the
10:30.
mess
10:30.
10:30. Thereafter, I would like to leave them to other time because I am missing out on an important activity.